This is the first episode of Stoke and Vent Podcast, and I've got Chris Sellick on. Just for a little introduction to the people listening, me and Chris have been talking for quite a while, and I wanted to have him on as my first guest because I think he puts across quite a similar message to myself. He seems to care about the same things as myself and champions firefighter health and wellbeing, so it seemed quite fitting to have him on as the first guest on this new venture. So I'll introduce you to Chris, and I will let him give you a bit of a background about himself and where he's from. So, Chris, if you just want to tell us a bit about yourself, your time in the job, what your role is, and we'll go from there.
Lovely. Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me as your first guest, James. What an honour. Really appreciate it. So thank you for that. So a bit about me, Chris Sellick. I've been in the job for 15 years this year. I'm from the southeast. I live in Hampshire. So just out to the west of London. I've had a variety of different roles across the operational service so far. Did start off my career in the retained, now commonly known as on-call. Did that for a couple of years or so, and then decided I liked it. Wasn't too sure if I was going to go into a different service or the military. Was thinking about the police and the military. So joined the retained, got a good taste for that. A really good crew, a really good start to the journey, if that makes sense. And thought, I'll give a crack at the whole time. Spent a few years trying to get into whole time, and then managed to get into my own service, which was good. Worked at 3 whole time stations now, currently on my 3rd. Did also, and I'm still currently serving in an on-call capacity. I've worked at 3 on-call stations, 3 whole-time stations. I've spent a little bit of time at the technical rescue station in my service. I've later transferred my on-call fire role into the urban search and rescue role, and that was about maybe 4 years ago. And at around a similar time, promoted to crew manager, and I'm currently sitting at the crew manager rank in my whole-time role and a technician rank or role in my urban search and rescue capacity. That's a bit of a wash-up.
Yeah, do you know what? You've followed a very similar path to myself, actually.
Really?
Yeah, starting the retained about 15 years ago. I initially wanted to join the police, ended up doing retained, then got whole-time after a few years, and recently took on crew manager role. So it sounds like we've followed a very
That's
similar
uncanny, isn't it?
path, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. I, however, did stop the on-call pretty quickly after doing the whole time. So that's what I want to ask you about. So you're still doing on-call and whole time. How do you find balancing those together? Because I know a lot of people, when they start whole time, they tend to, quite often, they'll give up the retained not long after, or they'll do it for a few years and then they'll decide it's too much. So how do you feel about, do you if you've got quite a good balance between the two?
I think it goes through phases. I think the on-call, that 4-minute bubble to your local station is a big ask, and it's a lot of responsibility both on the firefighter and the family network of the firefighter. So it's not uncommon to see people drop that on-call role, like you said, shortly after getting whole time. I think because I was at a really good station with a good crew and a great management team, there was a lot less friction to do it. I really enjoyed it for the whole time I did it. And even when I got into the ISAR team, I still kept my on-call at my local station. So I had three contracts at one point, but then it became a bit too much juggling the 3, and I transferred my retained to the ISAR side of things, which is a little bit more flexible on response times. It's a bit more family friendly. So it's not something to be underestimated, is what I would say. The commitment that's required of an on-call firefighter, as you know.
Yeah, I think the same. It's quite often referred to as part-time, isn't it? But it's not part-time at all. It's a full-time commitment.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which I think it's not really. I don't think it gets the appreciation and the respect it deserves, really. But it is
completely with you. Yeah,
it's a very demanding job, and it can be even more demanding on the family of the person that does it, I think.
Yeah, especially when you're required to maybe give like 80, 90 hours a week of cover.
Yeah.
It's a lot of night. Yeah. And then all your calls at your unsociable hours, and then you've got to turn up for your day job feeling 100%. And it's like, wow.
Yeah, it's a big
Yeah.
ask, I think, a lot of the time. We've kind of looked at your professional background. Is there anything else sort of separate to the fire service that's maybe influenced how you've got into what you're doing, or is it mainly sort of, have you ended up doing what you're doing and where you are now mainly through sort of influences that have come as part of the job, would you say?
What, like my journey into it
Yeah.
prior to joining?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay. So I went to a boarding school when I was younger, and it was like a military boarding school. So I think that kind of sowed the seed for early bugs for had that sort of mindset of discipline, routine, and stuff like that. That tends to work for me quite well. And then I studied public services at college and uni, which was also sort of starting to lean in towards that services role. And then a few of my friends started to look at the same route who I'd studied with. So that would be kind of the preset to joining the service. And then I started working, when I was working at Waitrose, one of my friends, Jack there, he was like, "Oh, have you considered like the on-call side of things?" And this is before all this social media that we have now and good information. I was like, didn't really understand it, and it's not something that we got input in on college at the time. And he was like, "Yeah, go and chat to your local fire station." I was like, "Okay, give it a shot." And they weren't recruiting at the time, so that was sad. And then the watch manager there phoned me up later on that year and was like, "Are you still interested in a job?" And I was like, "Yeah, definitely." So yeah, that was sort of the preset to what we touched on a bit earlier on.
Do you know what? Quickly add, again, for me, that was quite similar. Someone said to me about, have you looked at, I didn't even know it existed.
I know, right?
And someone said to me, you look at retained, and what's retained? They do it so many hours a week, they do it on call and they get a pager. And I just finished uni at the time. So I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll give that a go." Again, that's something that's quite similar. Unless someone had said it to me, I don't think I wouldn't have even known it existed.
No, exactly.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you as well about standout moments of your career and, standout moments or periods of your career as a firefighter and what you've experienced so far. If there's anything that, you'd like to talk about, anything that jumps out at you, or anything that's particularly sort of moulded who you are now and where you've got to now, really.
Yes, okay, yeah, I'm with you. I think, like, not to harp on about it, but the initial getting into the job was definitely a standout moment for sure in the on-call capacity, because I was a bit like, well, where do I go now? There was no whole-time recruiting at the time. So when I got that phone call to say, "Do you want to join the local station?" It was like, okay, this is an opportunity here. And then I spent a few years, 2 or 3 years, applying to various whole-time across the country. It was a time where there was not a lot of recruitment going on. I think I took on about 7-ish applications. And then getting into whole time in my own service was definitely a standout moment. Yeah, I remember getting that call and being like, felt like I'd won the lottery almost.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, right. I even thought at the time it was a prank phone call, because I was like, "Are you sure?"
Yeah, almost too good to be true.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Such a privilege, particularly when there wasn't many people that got to go through to actually getting onto a job sort of thing. So yeah, that was definitely a standout moment, which then has sort of formed the underpinning base for where my career's gone from there. Having that stability of doing the job as a day job, as a full-time job, allows you to then be like, right, this is my career right now. Let's see what it brings. So I spent some good time at a very close station. We had a couple of pumps and some wildfire vehicles and stuff like that. And that was really sort of cutting my teeth, getting to know the difference between retained life and whole-time life. Did my driving, I did some in-house instructor courses, stuff like that. That would be the base of it. And then as time's progressed, sort of settled in there for 5-7 years-ish. COVID came round, had the opportunity to do secondments with the NHS during COVID.
Yeah, I remember speaking to you about that, actually.
Yeah.
That sounded quite interesting.
It was interesting,
to say the
for
least.
sure. So yeah, interesting, eye-opening, very humbling. The 2 secondments, both standout moments of the career, were in the intensive care unit, and then later got the privilege of going onto the ambulances for about 6 weeks or so, and came off of both on-call and whole time at the time. and just was able to get across and do that. So yeah, that was definitely really good. Recommend that to anyone. If you get the chance to do a secondment into a different organisation, weigh up what's going on in your life if it's appropriate. But yeah, it's very developing. It was very challenging. It definitely pushed my resilience capacity, both of those things. But yeah, fully recommend it. What else? More recently, been entering some of the firefighter challenges, like the British firefighter challenge.
I saw you've done that. Yeah, that looked good. It's something I've always say I'll have a go at, and I'd like to. I think I will at some point, but yeah, it's just
I look forward to seeing you at one of them. Then I'll hold you to that.
Yeah, I was going to say don't hold me to it. But...
No, too late. Yeah, but no, like it was such a great crack. Really, such a nice community, and the beauty of it is, doesn't matter if you're like some of these pro athletes, or you're just into a bit of fitness maybe, or you're not even into. You just want to go for the opportunity to run the course and stuff like that. Yeah, fully recommend that. That was definitely a standout moment. And yeah, even went across to France with some of the British team and did one of those competitions over there as well, which was a great crack to go away for a long weekend. Trying to think what else.
You ISAR as well, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, so more on the professional side of things, the urban search and rescue, touched on it briefly earlier. I applied one time early on in my career. I think it might have even been before I got whole time. I was not successful, and then went back to it again and managed to get in. And yeah, just another challenge professionally. Really enjoyed it. Great bunch of people. You get a chance to work with people nationally, which is fantastic. And yeah, just adds another string to the bow, and you get to learn new stuff. Yeah, I'd recommend that if it's available in people's services, or you get a chance to do maybe like tech rescue or international search and rescue, which was that's very recent for me. Got into our international team.
Amazing. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Very, tough selection process for that.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's so rewarding. And I've just got back off of an exercise with the team, and it's just very humbling, the level of people that I'm working with who've been doing this for a lot longer. You're kind of like, wow, this is next level. So yeah, looking forward to pushing that. And then another thing I wanted to mention alongside like standout moments is not so much like pivotal one-offs or joining various teams and things like that, but it's the support that I've had going through various like professional challenges, personal challenges and journeys outside of work. The support I've had from like not just colleagues but like friends, like work friends, has been just next level.
As in just people in the fire service that you know, basically.
Yeah, people who I've known for years, some not so many years, but when times have got rough, both at work or in your personal life, for me, like those people, they all know who they are. They just have that impact on being there when those times are rough. And I think it's important to remember that outside all of your professional achievements, there's often people around you who might be just sort of in the sidelines, in the shadows, just cheering your corner or giving you that support. So it's important for me to also reflect and remember on those. And equally, I've had the opportunity where people have helped me, and I've had the opportunity to support them in not so great times, and that's quite a privilege as well, for someone to confide in you and say, oh, could I just chew your ear off about this, or could we grab a coffee and catch up? And I don't think that should be underestimated when people put their trust in you to support them as well.
Yeah, I think that's a massive thing, and I think it's good to hear that, because I don't think everybody necessarily has that in every job. I think a lot of jobs that people do, it's just a job, isn't it? Whereas I think the job that we do, there's a bit more to it than that, and it kind of brings everyone together as a unit, and it makes you kind of naturally support each other, because it's the kind of job where you have to work as a team. I think it means that we do naturally support each other. It's good that you feel like you've had that support, and also that you say it's a privilege to be in a position where you give that support as well. And I completely agree with that. I think it is quite a position to be in, someone to put the trust in you like that. Absolutely.
Yes, yeah, you're so right. And the job it's not like all the jobs, is it? And sometimes stuff at work does affect you, be it the culture or incidents. To have that network around you is important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chris, I just wanted to ask as well, off the back of your time seconded to the ambulance service, I think a lot of people don't appreciate the struggle and the strain and the battle that it was for people on the front line of the pandemic and what people were dealing with. So is there anything, can you talk a little bit more about your time in working, particularly working in the ICU, and why firefighters were needed to be seconded into that department, and sort of the strain that they were under and the support that you were able to provide, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. When I was in the ICU, it was, well, I think nationally we saw such a pressure on the NHS, didn't we, of the struggle of all these people struggling medically, and there not being the right resilience for them in the hospital system. So in my service, we offered a few different support options. I think we did the ICU, we did the ambulances, and we also did vaccinations. We turned the whole appliance bay into a vaccination centre for a period of time.
Right, yeah.
And then we also set up essentially like a morgue. It was all sort of was kept low key. Luckily, it wasn't utilised, I don't believe, in the end. But that was if there was sort of fatalities from the virus and that. But yeah, with specific reference to the ICU, because that's what I had the direct experience in. The role was around helping to turn patients, as in they are fully intubated and you kind of need 6 people to maneuver them because they might be in a coma for multiple weeks. The idea was to move them through different positions to stop them getting bed sores.
Right, okay, yeah.
And keep their body moving, because obviously they're not moving. So we did a short training course of a couple of days, learning how to support the nurses. So you'd have like 3 firefighters around the patient, and then maybe 3 nurses, one ICU, one of which would be an ICU nurse, and then like one consultant or doctor or someone who's trained to manage an airway at the head end. And we would move them using slide sheets and so on every X amount of hours. It was a little while ago, so I can't remember exactly how often. A lot of the nurses that I was working with in the ICU, that wasn't their primary role. So they'd been drafted in from other departments to help in that particular department. And the actual ICU ward, let's say, for example, the ward had a capacity for maybe 6 to 10 ICU patients. They actually closed the neighbouring ward in the hospital that I worked in and extended it around into either 1 or 2 different wards because of the volume of patients.
Because there was just that many.
Yeah.
Coming in that quickly.
Yeah, exactly that. And I was in a smaller hospital as well. Like, there was other hospitals like in the cities and everything that had similar things going on, but on a much grander scale. Even some of those nurses talked about how the media were coming in and almost saying, "Oh, it's not as bad as what you're saying," and all stuff like that. And they had seen the other side of it, and people can't just come up and have a look around the ward and see multiple intubated patients who and big COVID do not enter signs on the door, and it was quite.
I think that's what most people don't see, isn't it? And I think a lot of people denied the seriousness of it because it scared them and they didn't want to accept it.
Yeah.
Really. For me, I think that was kind of the root of it. A lot of people didn't want to accept what was going on, and it was easier to deny it, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I imagine that had quite a profound effect on you, really, and how you sort of dealt with what was asked of you, I imagine.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it was, like I touched on earlier, it was definitely a challenge. It was something I discussed with my wife before volunteering, and sort of said, right, what do you think about this? And we started off by me sleeping in different rooms to her and almost having our own decon procedure at home so that to minimise risk back here. We were in there for two months, I think, or thereabouts. A small team of 3. It was supposed to be 4, but 1 dropped out last minute. And then there were various other teams working around our county as well in different hospitals. But the things that surprised me was I'm working with these nurses. I'm like, oh, this is your day job. They're like, no, I'm from like paediatric ward, or I'm from the...
Yeah. So they've been seconded as well.
Yeah, internally. And you're just like, oh, right. So yeah, that's a little bit of an insight into that side of things. We didn't just do patient moving. We just helped out on on everything. Basically, we were just like, just give us any grunt work to take it away from their hands. Like, why do you want highly skilled ICU nurse, like, I don't know, changing bed sheets, clearing up diarrhea,
better utilised elsewhere?
So we're just like, just give, and then move patients in between, stuff like that. It was good. It was hard, but it was nice to have an impact, and they gave us some good feedback. And then the following year, I got to see the pressures of the ambulance service in that role. So again, we did a 3-day course on their procedures and policies. It had to be a blue light driver already. They did a conversion course for that, and then we were put out on the run. I chose to do it completely seconded rather than additional shifts, just because I wanted to just go for a bit, do that whole work, get fully immersed in it, and then come back to my station. But yeah, a poignant thing would be we'd do a 10-hour shift across a variety of different horrific shifts that move along the week. So you might start like 2 earlies, like a 6 till 4. A middle would be something like an 8 till 6. Then you've got other one late, where you'd finish at 10 p.m. and another one where you'd finish 2 a.m. or 6 a.m. We don't realise how lucky we got.
Finish at 2 a.m.
Yeah, I think it's a 4 till 2.
It's an odd shift, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not nice. It was really, really nice.
That's going to wreak havoc with your sleep pattern, isn't it? And
yeah, it gave me a whole other level of appreciation for the ambulance service. I know we say they're busy, and you see all the memes and stuff about fire service, police, and ambulance service, but during that couple of months secondment, the most amount of downtime I had between calls was 16 minutes.
Wow, 16 minutes.
Yeah, and you're just running like 6, 8, 10, 12 calls at a shift. And in that service, we got a protected 30-minute break. So you log on your radio and you're on tea break, and then eat your food, and then literally 30 minutes goes and you're looking at the radio, and then your next call comes through.
So it's literally enough time to shove a sandwich down your neck and have a drink, and then you're back to it, aren't you, really?
Yep. Yeah.
God, that's...
you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that does give you it gives me a bit of perspective, really, on how lucky we are to have the working pattern that we have, because it's very structured, really, isn't it, our working pattern? And it's, even though it does take its toll on you.
Yes. Yeah.
It does give you a good work-life balance, I think, having the structure of it.
Definitely.
But that's quite eye-opening, that, really.
Yeah. It was.
I wanted to ask as well, I imagine, was it when you were working in the ICU, did you get to see people coming off the ventilators and going home?
Yeah.
Like recovering, and after being in a coma, and, recovering, being taken off the ventilators and going home?
Yeah, we got to see, sometimes we wouldn't be there when they'd come off the ventilator, but we'd be like coming like the next shift or whatever, and they'd be sort of coming back around again. Wouldn't have any sort of use of their limbs at that stage, but they might be able to like just about have a chat, move their head around, and then they had the physio program. But yeah, that was really satisfying. But then the other side of the coin is some people, like, we'd come back in. I remember coming back in one shift, and the guy wasn't there anymore. And they're like, oh no, didn't make it. And it's like,
Imagine
that
was hard.
Yeah, it was really, really hard, because you're like, although that particular individual was in a coma, unconscious and stuff, you still talk to them.
Yeah, like, I bet you felt like you knew them.
Yeah, and you get to hear a bit about their backstory and stuff like that. And then this is the thing with like these ICU nurses, they like build a relationship with the person who then may not survive. And you're like, I mean, that's like a different level to what we do. We might meet someone for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and off they disappear. But these nurses have built relationships over days or weeks for someone to then pass away at the end of that. And you're like, man,
can't really understand the impact that would have. I think, you just, so you can appreciate it, but you can't really fully appreciate the impact that might have on somebody, I don't think.
I know, yeah.
And I like you say, we have a very brief window into people's lives, and we get a limited amount of time to make an impact, and it takes its toll. But I imagine that, being in a situation where you feel like you've got to know somebody, and you've built a relationship with them, like you say, I just can't even imagine.
No, I know, right?
That would have. really.
Yeah,
I think it just shows even more why we should respect the position that so many people were in over that period of time, really,
absolutely. Yeah, it
and
should not be underestimated.
appreciate where we are now. But yeah, hats off to you for putting yourself forward for that. And
Just felt like the right thing to do. I was kind of, we were just sat on the fire stations, still responding, still going to work as normal, whilst everyone else was like in lockdown, working from home. I felt like I was in quite a fortunate position. And when my service decided, actually, we can add some help here, I was already getting frustrated by not being able to, by not doing anything, if you know what I mean, with all the chaos happening around us. And I'm like, okay, I've got the capacity and the resilience, I think, to have some positive impact on the country here. Just send me where I'm needed and we'll work it out.
Yeah, that's interesting. You say you think you had the resilience, or you're in a position where you think, I think I've got the resilience for this, and I think that shows your self-awareness that you're not just gonna assume you're cut out for it, but you at the same time you want to find out if you are, and obviously it turned out that you are cut out for it, and you have got the resilience for it. So I think that's that's telling about your character as well. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, mate.
No, you're right. Yeah, that's an interesting reflection, actually.
Sharing that with us. So, also off the back of that, I think it sort of slides quite nicely into the next bit that I wanted to ask you about. As someone who's an advocate for health and well-being, as you obviously are, I'd like to ask you, what advice would you give to serving and aspiring firefighters when it comes to them looking after themselves and prioritising their own health, really?
If we break it down into a couple of sections, for the serving firefighters, you talk a lot about decon, don't you? I know it's a massive passion project of yours, and you've put out such a good message on your platforms to advocate for that. I think there's multiple sort of prongs or streams that would feed into health through decon. For those that are already in, I think it is in a proactive and a reactive capacity. So your daily habits around the station will contribute to your positive future longevity and health, is my view on it. So there's the proactive front, like, are you putting night trials on when you're doing your BA checks or your locker checks, or stuff in what we're calling like an amber zone, or a zone in the station which we know is not guaranteed to be clean? Proactive, because I'm talking about it's not in an operational capacity. So there's those daily habits, like, are we washing our hands? You've talked about this. Where are you storing your gloves? I put my gloves in like a little cellophane zip tied bag, and they live in there, but we've still got people storing their gloves in their helmets, and you're going to put your gloves.
That's a real bugbear of mine, that
It is.
On the drill yard, helmet upside down, dirty gloves in the helmet.
Yeah.
That is a big bugbear of mine, that is, yeah. I was actually, when I first joined, my mentor, actually said, store your gloves in your helmet.
Yeah.
So helmet was on your peg, gloves were inside your helmet, and that's, that was the done thing. And it took me a while to cotton on, do you know what? I don't think I should be doing this, to be honest. But
I mean, now off your own.
Things I'd read and people I'd spoke to and whatever else. And it was after a few years in the job that I kind of started to become aware of it. But I think now there's just no excuse for it now at all.
Completely with you. It's just habit, isn't it? And change resistance, or reluctance to change.
Exactly that, yeah.
But we have to question, is what I'm doing the right thing for my health here? And yes, we do a job where we weigh up benefit versus risk, don't we? And we may take risks to save life and so on. But it's like, at what expense? Are you compromising your own health now with little benefit? Okay, you're going to not put some blue gloves on to do your checks because you can't be bothered to go over to the glove store and grab some, or it's the last pair. I'll just do my checks. Right, let's count how many times you do that check over a potential 42-year career, from 18 years old, say, to 60. Yep. How many times are you going to put that on your hands?
Bearing in mind, dermal absorption is one of the key pathways that we absorb contaminants. It's through the skin. You think about getting it on your hands. How long is it going to sit on your hands for? Do you wash your hands before you go upstairs and have a bit of toast, or yeah? So I do. I stick gloves on now when I'm doing my checks and whatever else, and I notice other people doing it as well.
Yes,
which is good.
Yeah.
So
I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. I think different pockets of the country are ahead or behind others, but I think generally, nationally, we're getting the right progress, aren't we? But I always think, well, let's strive for the next thing. Another thing I've reflected on is, okay, so we're looking back at like the last decade of what we perhaps haven't done so well, and we're now like, right, we're here now. Here's what we've learned. Let's do this for the next 10 years. I try and position myself 10 years ahead from now and think, right, what are we going to change in 10 years that we're doing now that we haven't actually thought of yet?
That's a great way to look at it.
And you think, okay, well, the future me in 10 years is going to wish that I did X, Y, and Z in this coming 10 years to look after my health here. But I'm here now. So, right, what habits are going to help me to be here healthily and happily?
Yeah.
That, and it forces you to think a bit creatively and think, right, well, these changes have happened in the past. We've now got a disrobing procedure in BA after our BA wear, and it involves putting on gloves. It involves putting on FFP3 mask. What can we think of to get ahead of the curve and not just stay with the curve almost? So yeah, daily habits around the station. Definitely consider where are you storing your gloves, what are you doing with your checks. Are you standing next to the diesel exhaust and just having a good old breathe of all those good stuff?
Another one of my bugbears, that is. Running pumps inside and standing next to it.
Yeah, get the doors open. If you need to run the truck up, get those doors open. Don't stand in the fumes, or better still, take it,
back it out.
Yeah, take it out into the yard.
Yeah.
Start her up, and don't hang around in the exhaust pipe.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's think about your zones. My motto is for those serving, I think we've been really good at protecting ourselves from having a whoopsie daisy in a fire and having a near miss or worse, or like getting run over on a motorway, or those sorts of risks. The reason the fire service is behind, in my opinion, is because the risk of contaminants won't often kill you on the same day. It will kill you another day over here somewhere. So you're like, right.
It's not right in front of you.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So because it can't kill me now, or it can't kill my colleague right here and now, I don't worry about it. It'll be all right. Will it?
Yeah, I completely agree. I've said the same thing. If there's something right in front of you that might, kill you, people are a bit more wary of it.
Yeah.
Like, say if it's something, 20 years down the line, people, they're not motivated in the same way to protect themselves, because it's almost like there's that illusion that it's not real, I think, for a lot of people, and it's easy to ignore, isn't it, really?
Absolutely.
Whereas, falling off a ledge, you can't really ignore that, the potential for that, can you?
No.
Because it's staring you in the face.
Yeah, but now we know it's here. It's now forming part of our DRAs and our ARAs at jobs. And yeah, you've got to think about that. Go back to earlier, that you in 10 years time, that you in 20 years time, what's he or she going to wish that you were doing now? Damn it. And if you could
what would they say to you?
Yeah, what would that future you say to you now about your daily habits, about your proactive stuff and about your reactive stuff off of the back of jobs? Just because it can't kill you today doesn't mean it can't kill you. Yeah. Another one I've heard or another good thing I'd think to reflect on for the serving firefighters, it's too late for me. Have you heard that one?
I've heard that before from people as young as in the 20s, to be honest, which is
okay.
We don't even need to say how ridiculous that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally you get it more from the older guys, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have heard that.
Is it? I'll say, like, is it though? How long are you planning to live? How long do you want to live? Or you never know which we don't know enough about it yet to know which exposure changed your DNA, do we, or gave you that illness?
Exactly.
It might be the one that you touched yesterday. We don't know enough about it. But yeah, and I also think the second prong to that is that you might have 5, 10, 15, 20 years left until you retire or something. But also there's someone younger than you in the job who's looking at you and your decon practices. If you're, let's say, 40-year-old firefighter, 50-year-old firefighter, or maybe even less, there's someone who's maybe 18 years old, they're in their 20s, and whether they know it or not, someone's watching you and looking up to you. At least do the right thing for the next generation that's coming up younger than us, and set a nice example, set the right practices. Someone before you and I went into fires without wearing BA.
Yeah, doesn't mean we should be doing it now, does it?
Yeah, and the likes of you and I, hopefully setting a nice example for those 10 years less than us, or however long.
Absolutely agree.
Bit touched on those things. For those aspiring or those new in the job, I think it would be important to reflect on the massive national variety we have in both standards and culture. Like your standards of decon, yes, nationally, the union. I know you're a union rep and you're heavily involved in that side of things. You can see the union supporting the national change, aren't they? They're doing loads of positive work.
Yeah.
It's really
Absolutely.
good. And I've been pushing their surveys out and things like that as well. But we'll still have a variety. We don't have a national fire service. We've got different pockets of different cultures all across the UK, and even on a smaller scale within individual services. So you might land on a watch that is really quite hot on decon. They're early adopters. They're wanting to do the right thing. But equally, you might find you're a watch of people that aren't. The best thing I'd say there is, again, hark back to earlier, consider the future you. Think about your future and what you want. Like, does the future you wish that you just stuck up for yourself a little bit more now and spent that extra 15 minutes cleaning the BA set, having an early shower, saying, actually, no, the truck's not ready to go back on the run yet because I haven't had my shower. Can I have just an extra 10 minutes to shower all of this contaminants off my skin, rather than taking the chance of getting tipped out onto an RCC or a standby or something where that's going to be on your skin for an hour or two. It's easier said than done, I think, for newbies and probies.
Yeah, it definitely. I think what you made me think there is, obviously there's a bit of a culture, isn't there, when you're new, to just shut up and listen to what you're told, and you keep your opinions to yourself and whatever else. But I think if you're in a position where you are concerned about your health, or something doesn't feel quite right, or you think, actually, I'm not happy with this level of risk, then yeah, absolutely, whether you've been in 20 years or 20 minutes, I think, speak up, and you should be listened to, really. If it's a genuine concern like that, I would like to think that no matter how long you've been in, it's going to be taken seriously, really.
Yeah, everyone's got a voice, whether you're a probie or not. You should be taken seriously. If we use your ledge example earlier,
yeah,
there's your immediate risk. Like your peer or your JO isn't going to let you go within a few meters of that risk without a work restraint on, are they?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah,
and if a probie or someone who's a little bit newer into the jobs raises that as a risk to a JO, might just trigger that thought of, actually, no, yeah, you're right. And if you've got continual problems with the same malpractice or not adhering to correct decon procedures and stuff like that, then you're just going to have to raise it a bit more formally, or think about perhaps moving watches, or you have to look after yourself, because no one else is coming in the same capacity that. So yeah, that's kind of for my main things. Yeah, you've just got to do your risk assessments, ops and non-ops.
Yeah, I think that leads quite nicely into the next bit I wanted to touch on. So obviously, somebody that's been, you've been in the job for, I think you said 15 years, and you've spent a decent chunk of that as a firefighter. You're now a junior officer. So I think I'd like to ask you, what advice have you got for other firefighters and other JOs that do want to push those healthy initiatives and want to push that mindset of taking care of yourself, cancer prevention, mental health awareness, and those that are really trying to push positive cultural change? Because I think a lot of the issues that we experience in the fire service are down to culture, and it's down to, I think, sometimes a stagnation of the way things are, and a reluctance to accept change. Not all change is necessary. We do experience our fair share of unnecessary change, I think, but there is a lot of positive change that is taking place at the moment. So what advice would you give to people in the job that want to affect that change but are unsure of how to do so?
Yeah, that's a good question. I like to look at these things a bit like what we talked about just now, in both the proactive and reactive capacity, and then also bringing in a bit of the compounded effects over time. Like, if you think about the investment in your health, like a financial investment, if you stick a tenner in a 5% interest account, you're not really going to notice the difference after a day or two, or even a year or two. But if you apply the same principle of daily or per tour, per shift action towards your proactive measures, and by supporting that in a watch capacity, you're going to reap the benefits of that over the time. Just as you see the negative side of bad habits, or maybe not bad habit, maybe bad habits is the wrong word. Maybe it's habits that don't support your health and well-being. I think internally we all know what's good and what isn't good for us and our teams. And by doing that proactively, you're kind of offsetting or not offsetting all of it, but you're reducing your chances of things that happen, or the things that could happen. In a team environment, I think it's really important to have your own set of both individual and team standards. So in your watch or in your team, right, okay, here's my services policy. We should be following it because that is the guidelines that come nationally, supported by the union, supported by decon experts, etc. And we know that as our team, we are going to, clean our BA sets, 5 ground clean and then a station clean when we get back to station. Even if those horrible shouts at 3:00 in the morning, where the easy thing is to be like, okay, I'm just going to do it in the morning when we do all the rest of the truck. We might get another shout. Yeah, you might, but you probably won't, or you might not. Do the right thing when it's hard, and JOs and firefighters need to encourage and support that as a regular practice, so that it's like, right, we know we are going to clean these sets now. We know we're going to get the 2BA or the 4BA or whoever wearers up into the shower, and they're going to, that's more of a pushing and supporting the initiatives that have been brought into our services to champion that good health. Also, like training in new methods. We train how to put a 135 ladder up, don't we? Probably once a month, or maybe some stations a bit less than that.
Yeah.
How many times do you use the 135?
On a job?
Yeah, operationally.
Probably operationally, I would say twice, maybe.
Okay, yeah. And how many times have you taken a BA set off after you've worn BA? More than twice?
Sorry, say that. What?
How many times have you worn BA operationally? You've lost.
Oh, right, yeah, you lose count, don't you? Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is we often train for those things that we don't do less often. But like, have you brought in safe undress procedure in your service for BA?
So following a BA work?
Yeah.
Yes, we do. We have like a doffing procedure and different levels of contamination and things.
And then like the mask comes off last and everything. And
yeah, exactly. So if you're that contaminated, we would say consider a dry peel.
Yes.
Really, if you're that contaminated,
yeah,
then, why not?
So I think like encourage training that procedure as well. Like, if you're coming out of just a heat and smoke BA training session, just get into the habit of it. Like do your full stage, like you said, dry peel, and then you're starting to remember and reinforce that practice. And again, supported by JOs, supported by firefighters. To your BAT or your BA instructor, do you mind if at the end of this drill, me and my buddy do our decon procedure, and we set up outside as we would on the job? Because if we're not training like we are on the job, and we're not routinely doing the methods that we've been taught to do to support our longevity, it's easy to forget, or it's easy to go, oh damn, I've just taken my flash hood up over my face rather than taking it up over my mask. And you're like, does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. It's muscle memory as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think you said about the 135 and whatever, and I like to, when we do ladder drills, whenever we put the ladder up, I like to encourage people to climb it.
Yeah.
Because I think every time you pitch a ladder on the drill yard, I think you should climb it. And I try and make a point of climbing it every time you pitch it, because if you don't, you could go 2 years without even climbing a ladder.
With you.
You don't want the first time in 2 years that you're climbing a ladder to be at 3:00 in the morning up against a burning building.
Yeah.
So I think you want to be able to do it without thinking about it, really.
Yes.
It needs to be second nature, I
Yeah.
think. And I think what you're talking about is the same thing. You want to naturally go through that cycle of protecting yourself and doing those things that will protect you.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, there's other bigger picture things that you can do to like push these initiatives and support. So I've just joined my services like Wellbeing group or Wellbeing committee.
Okay, yeah.
Is just it's nothing that's forced upon us, but it's encouraged, because now I get to feed into the bigger picture of what's happening around the service, learn about all these different teams who are doing different things, then feed that back into my teams as well. So, we're all very good at moaning in the fire service. Not all of us, but
most of us are. Well, I think we all need to have a whinge now and again, don't we?
I think my view on it is there's an important window of whinging and venting, but then if it goes beyond that line, I'm like, that's a bit too much now.
Yeah,
But if you are finding yourself in that position where you are just frustrated and the moan culture is strong, then do something about it. You've got the opportunity, you're a voice, to go and join a group, join a committee, have a positive input on the greater picture. And this is where you can start impacting bigger picture stuff. Like within our watches as an individual and within our small teams, you can do a lot. But then if you want to reach further, like with you and Stoke and Vent, you've got an audience of 5,000 odd people that are interested in championing good practice and stuff like that. You can then do a similar stuff within your service to push, promote, support, get wellbeing boards up on the walls, talk to other watches, try and get a rep on each watch maybe, or on each retain station, who's your decon rep, or who's your wellbeing rep, and make sure that everyone's singing off the same hymn sheet, trying to get that good message out there. Yeah, I've got
absolutely.
Go on, were you going to say something?
No, I was just saying that, I completely agree.
Yeah, got a couple of other things that I can dive into on like mental health and culture, if that works.
Yeah, definitely. Mate.
Mental health, as you know, is a big passion project of mine.
I know it is. Yeah, I was hoping that we would get into a bit of your mental health knowledge and your passion for it, because I know that is something you're very passionate about.
Definitely. I think it goes hand in hand with like your physical well-being, which ties into decontamination. I think the well-being and health, the crossover of those two things for me, because there's so much we can do physically, but often, particularly as we see in the fire service or a lot of public services, from what I gather, is that mental health side of things. The importance for JOs and firefighters to support mental health is paramount right now. Building psychological safety, something that I've learned about in the last few years. We're starting to throw the term around a little bit in service, but it's quite new. Not new as in new everywhere, but it's a new-ish branch to the fire service, isn't it? We do another throwback 10, 20 years and, maybe a bit more than that, but mental health wasn't really a thing. It was disregarded, was, shut up and crack on. Yeah, you've broken your ankle, everyone's there, everyone's going to attend. You've had a mental health wobble. Oh, it's a bit weird, Yeah,
absolutely.
So yeah, psychological safety is about building a culture within your team where you can sort of feel safe to take risks in a controlled environment. I think particularly like in a training environment, or where you want to understand something about a subject a little bit more without being belittled or back chatted behind your back. Oh, Chris didn't know how to do a quarter roof flap or whatever. Actually, right. I'm trying to make a safe environment where I've forgotten how to do a quarter roof flap or a side removal. Oh yeah, no worries, mate. Like I'm confident on that one. Can I help show you? Yeah, brilliant. Cheers. Our skill set's so broad, isn't it? That
it is. Yeah.
It's a mission, I think, to stay on top of everything 100%, and that's where that comes in.
Yeah, you can never know everything. You can never retain everything all at once, can you?
No.
So when you say not being afraid to take risks, do you mean by taking risks, do you mean by sort of allowing yourself to be vulnerable and showing everybody else that you don't know everything and saying, look, I'm not sure about this. Can somebody show me? So you mean sort of taking the risk of daring to ask?
100%. Yeah, you've put the nail on the head there, James. Like it is literally just what you said. And if you're the person on the receiving end of that, don't let an ego get ahead of you, and actually appreciate that person might have felt uncomfortable to share that they've gone a bit rusty on a subject area, or they don't know about a certain mental health issue, or what is PTSD, what is complex trauma. Okay, I know a bit about that. I'm happy to share that with you. I think historically the service has been, knowledge is power, but it's not. Like, if you're not sharing your knowledge and your wisdom, particularly the generations ahead of us that we're trying to absorb knowledge and skills from, and then to pass that on. Yeah, when I say take risks, it's about in a safe, controlled environment. I'm not talking about like undue risk in an operational environment. I'm particularly talking about training risks, mess room talk. Does that make sense? Like where you
it does.
disagree with people comfortably or raise concerns. I think there's a lot of, I don't want to upset anyone. Okay, we're going to live with resentment, or
Yeah, definitely. And I think I would say the same to, sort of 20, 30-year firefighters that are maybe, you've got a senior firefighter on the watch, and there's quite a lot of pressure on that person, I think. So there's high expectations, and they may feel like they are expected to know everything all the time. And if there's something, they might not want to let the younger ones see that there's something they don't know. But we're all human, aren't we? And it's like you say, you can't know everything all at once. So I think it's important for people in those positions to remember that as well. And it's okay to forget things, and it's okay to ask other people for advice. I think no matter how long you've been in this job, really, I would say.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a really good point you raised there, mate, about those more senior hands, as we call them here, don't we? Like,
yeah,
you're right, because they are often looked at, aren't they, for so-and-so is going to know this, but yeah, sometimes they might not, and that's okay, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So more on like the mental health compassion, and like a peer or a JO's ability to just listen. Recently, I've been thinking about 2 ears and 1 mouth. So there's 2 ears there. Have you heard this?
I heard this very recently, actually. I'm trying to think where it was. I heard this very recently. I'm listening to Arnold Schwarzenegger's book.
Yeah.
Be useful it is. Yeah, I'm listening to that at the moment, and he said exactly that recently, actually.
Did he? There it is.
You said that, and I was trying to think. I've heard that recently.
I can't remember where I saw it, but it's like, it rings true. I think the ability of I think leadership carries no rank. Like, I think you don't need any rank to be a leader. Yeah. I think you can be a great peer. It doesn't matter what you're wearing on your shoulders or what stripes you've got on your helmet. If you've got a good level of compassion for people, you can use your 2 ears and your 1 mouth to listen to hear and understand someone. Don't listen and wait for the gap to respond. It's important to actually listen to somebody, think about and empathize with what they're actually saying to you, like really consider it. And then, it's not always appropriate just to give solutions. As blokes as well, we tend to I can see it in black and white, here's your solution. Well, actually, you might benefit that person more by asking a deeper question, or asking a question of, okay, well, what would that look like for you? Or what is important to you right now? How can I support you most? Because how I might support you might not be the right way. I might say, James, you've given me this situation. What do you think looks best from this conversation for me to help you out right now? And then you might actually go, I think I just wanted to get it off my chest. Or could you help me develop some ideas around this? And you're actually listening to your peer and colleague then. Yeah. And that kind of supports the greater value of the situation, if that works.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. What other initiatives? I think a culture that accepts mistakes and vulnerabilities, it doesn't just arrive. We have to build it. We have to work towards it. Just as any change in shift culture or watch culture, it takes time and effort. Like any relationship, you have to build the relationships, be they professional or personal, work with integrity, and build resilience in your team by slowly pushing the comfort zone in the training environment, builds confidence in the operational environment. And then for us around the mess table or, in the back of the truck, having those conversations where your head's not in your phone doom scrolling, you're actually taking 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, an hour somewhere to just get to know your teammate who you spend 48 hours with every 8 days or thereabouts, and who's got stuff going on. Yeah, mostly lately I'm just trying to kind of act by my values, and if my values are aligned with teamwork, supporting my team, and being open to feedback as a relatively new JO, I think you could put yourself in a good position to build positive relationships quickly and really support a positive watch environment.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot to be said for that, just listening to what people have to say.
Yeah.
You kind of get to know people a lot better if you're just willing to listen more than you want to speak, I think. And that's something I'm learning at the moment as well, is how to do that, really. And it's something I try and be mindful of.
I think there's have you heard of Stephen Covey? Stephen Covey, 7 Habits?
I don't think so, no.
I know you like a good book, don't you? And a good
I do.
Check out Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Oh, I've heard the title of the book. Yeah, I didn't know that was he was the guy that had written it, but I have heard the title.
He's got a few books, but yeah, I think that might be up your street. One of the concepts is seek first to understand before being understood.
Yeah.
In team environments, it's imperative. If I'm seeking to understand somebody else first before I'm trying to run my mouth or put my opinion across, it just gives you that time to think about them and reflect on the situation.
Yeah, that reminds me of a quote I remember. I can't remember where the quote's from, but it's something like, listen to understand, not to respond.
Yes, yeah.
I think it sounds like a very similar.
That's really similar
kind of approach. Yeah.
And that's aligned with your Schwarzenegger's 2 ears, 1 mouth as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. What else have I got? I've got recognition of burnout in self and others, and
that's an important one. I think that's a big one.
Yeah. Once you get to know your team and you take the time to understand them and their triggers or little telltales that they're perhaps not on it, that's really important. And the offsetting. I talk about the capacity bucket. You're nodding like you've heard this phrase as well.
It sounds familiar. Yeah. It's like the way it fills up, I think.
Yeah, you've got to, like, basically, if you imagine a visual bucket and different responsibilities, different commitments, different people, be that at work or outside of work, either contribute towards the bucket becoming full, or they are the tap at the bottom which releases some out. And your general well-being mechanisms, going to the gym, going for a walk, meeting up with friends, might be the tap at the bottom that releases some of the weight up top. And then the recognition of, right, my bucket's actually feeling like it's going to overflow soon. Time for some self-care to reduce some of what's going on there.
You know what? I've not actually heard it described like that. Actually, it was a bit more of a pessimistic explanation. I think I came across. It was that we have a cup that fills up over time.
Yeah.
And when it gets to the top, that's when you kind of get overwhelmed. There was no kind of talk about turning the tap on at the bottom and what we can do to release that.
Yeah.
So I'm quite glad you've explained it that way. That analogy is new to me, really. I think I got the conversation I had with somebody. I got about half of it by the sound of it.
Well, if it's a cup, there's no release at the bottom, is there? There's only one way it's going to go, and that's overflow. There's also an important section of the bucket that you don't know is there, not you, but people don't actually realise that there's a good few inches worth of stuff in the bottom of the bucket that could be from historical trauma.
Yeah.
Unknown PTSD from incidents.
Yeah. It's
like locked away. It's at the bottom. It's in a box with a key, but it's taking up a large capacity of your resilience.
Right.
And sometimes you've got to dive down into that bucket, find the box, open it up. It's probably going to push the water level up a little bit. But with the greater picture that okay, I'm getting some help here. These unresolved issues over time, it's a bit uncomfortable, but I've gone to the therapist. I've talked to some friends. I've got some coaching. I've got, some psychological support, and you're actually bettering yourself by doing that. But yeah, in terms of your question of initiatives from JOs and firefighters, I think we've got to recognise each other's capacity buckets, know what people's triggers are, and support that downtime, help people when they're struggling, but try and think about things that prevent it. What positive things do we do as a watch that create resilience in the bucket? Working out together, grabbing a coffee after work, having those mess room meals and time together like that. It's been a busy shift or whatever. You had a big training night planned the next morning. Maybe just ease off on it a little bit. And, after challenging jobs, just recognise that it ebbs and flows. And in our job, you can't just stick to the plan 100% of the time. You've got to have that flexibility to sort of adapt and change according to where people are at, both individually and as a team organism. You can kind of feel when the energy's high, and you can feel when it's not quite right, and you need to invest in supporting the team in those moments.
So we briefly touched on culture as well, Chris, off the back of all the mental health stuff, and you've mentioned you wanted to talk specifically about culture as well, and I think that sort of links quite nicely into to positive change as well, because I think a big part of the resistance to change is culture, isn't it?
100%. Yeah. It's a strange thing that I didn't really know much about when I joined the fire service, and having supported various people across the UK, both remotely and those more local to me who then got in, I've kind of forgotten that it can be a strange environment, particularly for a more mature adult joining the service who knows perhaps a corporate world or a totally different career. I think it's a bit different if you're coming from ambulance, police, military, prison service, etc. But I am sort of very aware that our culture it can be a confusing and strange beast.
I think it's an acquired taste.
Acquired
isn't it?
taste. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it can be toxic AF, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
And I've certainly been involved in those environments, and I know that other peers and colleagues have as well, where it's not so good. And I think particularly for a new joiner, it was important to note that there's a lot of good championing work going on at the moment around culture. We touched on the union earlier, and teams within services that are supporting positive culture change, but negative, toxic culture is still out there. It still exists, probably much as it does in different work types and careers across the UK. I think a fundamental principle of mine, particularly as you become more comfortable in your new team, is that culture starts with you as an individual. Let's say you're on a watch of 10 people, you're 10% of that culture. Like your input and your behaviours, what you are willing to accept and not accept, it forms a big chunk of that. And, other negative characters, if they are around, they might lean into taking up more of that percentage, even if they are 1 in 10, for example. It's about what you're willing to accept. And I think if your behaviours are centred around your own values, and you're the person who wants to push positive culture, support positive culture, embrace things like good decon practice, health, psychological safety on your watch, good leadership, etc., then you have to lead by example. Again, it doesn't matter what's going on in your shoulders, what stripes are on your helmet. If you're living by good fire service values, best practice, and that contributes positively into your individual culture and that of your team, then the outward ripples carry on. If you drop the stone in the water, it doesn't just disappear right there, does it? It expands, and those ripples go out to those other people around you. So yeah, that would be a bit of a start on culture. I think in your part of the world, are you familiar with the term rumour mill and jungle drums? Do you have those? The rumour mill and jungle drums?
Yes, rumour mill, definitely. Jungle drums, I'm not sure I'm familiar with that.
Okay, so rumour mill, well, let's just say that's the national then. If you've heard of it, I'm going to assume that I've heard it across various.
Yeah, I think that's kind of it's kind of like a high school mentality.
Yeah,
that isn't it? When it takes off and it gets repeated, and yeah, sometimes you hear things and you're like, this There's no way that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
There's no way that's true. And it does make you almost second guess everything sometimes in this job,
yeah.
don't you? Really, you think, is someone made that up, or is someone having me on, or yeah,
I think it can be very damaging. I think rumours and toxicity can damage a watch culture, station culture, or even service culture beyond what people may think. And because a bit like a carcinogen, you can't see it. You just kind of know it's there. You get a feel for it and stuff like that. Some of my recent reflections have been like, well, okay, what does a mill need to operate? Like in a traditional sense of a mill, it needs oats or grains or whatever, and it needs something to push it round to grind it up into flour. So I'm like, all right, so the fire service has this unseen thing called a rumour mill. It needs fuel and it needs stuff to put into it. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm just not going to engage in that. I'm not going to feed the mill.
yeah.
When I was in the ICU, I saw on their board this poster that feeds quite nicely into the rumour mill, and it was called Think. And Think was written vertically. I did this exercise with my watch recently, and it said at the top, before you speak, think. And then each of the letters stood for something. So T was, is it true? H, is it helpful? I, is it inspiring? N, is it necessary? And then K was, is it kind? And it makes you think before you open your mouth or start pushing that wheel of grinding up the rumours to churn out a load of powder at the bottom.
Yeah.
And as a newbie or recent joiner, I think that willingness or that want to be accepted onto your new team you could end up seeing yourself pushing around the rumour wheel with your peers. Sometimes it's good to just have a good chat. And, like we talked about the moaning culture earlier, but if that wheel starts spinning and it's not serving anyone, what's the point? Try and run my own policy with myself of to not engage, to walk away, or to challenge it. So if there's information, have you heard about our crewing? We're gonna lose half the station. Okay, right. Let's stop that there. Tell me the source of this information. Can you show me that your group manager has emailed you this? Where's this come from? People get nervous and it can be damaging with misinformation.
Yeah.
So yeah, similar with the jungle drums. If it works alongside rumours. Have you heard that this is happening? It's playing on the jungle drums again. So and so's getting promoted. So and so's getting force moved, etc. The jungle drums can't sound on their own. It takes someone to play the drums, doesn't it? So, similar concept. I think with the culture side of things as well, you can easily, in a fire service environment, in my opinion, get wrapped up in other people's belief systems. You touched on it earlier when you said about a 20-year-old firefighter saying, "Oh, it's too late for me now," with the decon practice.
Yeah.
It's like, is that actually your own belief system, or is that something that you've absorbed?
Yeah. It makes you wonder where so this particular person, they were late 20s and they'd been in the job around 7 or 8 years, something like that.
Okay.
And I think they'd maybe heard other people saying that, and it's a bravado thing as well, isn't it? Saying, "Oh yeah, it's too late for me because I've been around the block."
You got it.
This many times, and it's like, well, you've still got 30 years ahead of you. Yeah, it's astounding, really.
So you can support like that by asking an individual like that, is that actually what you believe, or have you done some self-reflection to see where that belief system comes from? Because a lot of our belief systems aren't actually, or might not actually be our own. Like they're sort of wired into our brains when we're little children and everything. And you can be susceptible to absorbing belief systems that aren't your own, absorbing practices from those around you that aren't your own, be that, operational practices or just behaviors and cultural practice, cultural norms, which may not actually benefit you or those around you. So I always think it's important to question your own belief systems, not overly, like all the time, like just a constant circle of self-analysis. But if you've got 5 minutes and you input it on a particular subject area and you kind of have that feeling of, why do I think like that? Where's that come from? Do I actually believe that? You can really make some big personal and professional growth wins in your mindset by potentially undoing that belief system. Like your guy, or girl, oh no, I've only been in 7 years. James is right. I've got 30 years to go. It's definitely not too late for me to change my decon
I'm only
practice.
25% into my career.
Yeah, put it as a percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah, 25. And then if we circle it back to your for JOs and firefighters, we've got to be proactive in supporting culture. Goes back to what I said earlier. Like, relationships don't just arrive. Relationships, meaningful ones, take time to build, and investment and ups and downs, corrections, getting to know each other. Same with the culture. You might try a particular way and it just doesn't land, but at least you've tried to improve it. The flip side of that is we have to challenge negative culture or culture that doesn't support your watch or your team in a proactive way, and do fun stuff. Did you get issued a fun sponge when you promoted to JO? Just sort of this thing I have in my mind, and I've not been issued mine yet, but I think as JOs we can be susceptible to being a fun sponge.
Right, yeah.
And it's kind of,
I know what you mean,
finding your feet, of getting that delicate balance of actually, right, we were a firefighter, and there is a difference between our job roles now, and you've got to have a little bit of a self-reflection of what your behaviours might look like, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But also, like, just embrace the fun times a little bit as well for those JOs, and don't try and suck all of the fun out of absolutely everything.
Yeah. Do you know what? Something I sort of struggled with from my first sort of, and I mean even now and again really, is that balance really, because not in terms of fun, but in terms of like the way I am on the drill ground and at incidents and stuff, and learning to take a step back and not get drawn into doing things physically, because I've still spent the majority of my career so far as a firefighter. And I think now, I'm in a position where if I'm running an incident or running a drill, you have to step back and remember that you are in a different position. And I think that maybe does translate to managing the culture on the watch, and remembering that, I guess, you kind of need to be mindful of making sure, people have fun, but also I'm now in a position where I am responsible if it does go too far, and you can't just always have a laugh about it and watch somebody else, take on that responsibility, because I am now in that position, and it is a difficult line to walk, I think, sometimes, especially as a crew manager, because you're kind of in the middle there, aren't you, really, where you're in the middle of the watch manager, who ultimately is the boss, and the rest of the crew. So it's a good position, and it's a fun position, but I think you're walking a bit of a tightrope sometimes, I think.
I can so relate to what you're saying there. And how have you found it, like, trying to find that weird balance between the two?
It's all right, to be honest. So far, I'm enjoying it, and fortunately, I've got a great watch, so it's I'm not really, I wouldn't say I'm struggling in that sense, but it's I'm learning a lot about myself, I think.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm learning a lot about myself, and I'm still learning what kind of manager I am, I guess. So it's interesting for me to just take it as I find it, really, and work out how I react to certain situations.
I
imagine would you say it's been a similar kind of experience for yourself?
Smiling and nodding, thinking, this all sounds really, really similar. And I know other colleagues have had similar. They often say that the jump from fire to crew is harder than crew to watch, and then it gets harder again, allegedly, from watch to station.
Yeah, well, that's completely different. You're coming off the pumps, then aren't you? You're off station. I imagine that's a bit of a culture shock.
But some of my biggest learns as a JO, particularly when I was starting out in that difficult place of finding my feet, a lot of it came from my peers and those who I'd I joined a different watch as a firefighter, and was a temporary JO for a while before I got substantive. And like, some of those senior hands on that watch were brilliant in looking out for me, because they've got far more ops experience than I have. When I'm sat on a truck with a combined service of over 70 years, do you know what I mean? And they're not stupid. They've been there, seen it, done, had multiple JOs, and like, a couple of them I confided in and said, look, like, how am I getting on? Give me some feedback and stuff. And I got some great invaluable feedback from some of those guys from that vulnerability position of saying, look, a few months in, what's it looking like from your point of view? And they can give you that. The honest feedback is probably one of the best things that you can get if you're open to it as a firefighter, as anyone in this sector. If you can get honest feedback and you're in a receptive state, I think it's so valuable and it's so underrated as well.
Yeah, it is, and I think that position of senior hand on the watch it's such a valuable position to have somebody on the watch that, you know, they've been a firefighter for 20 years, 25 years, especially as a new JO. I think to have somebody like that on the watch, you know, either sat next to you driving you or sat behind you in the back, I think a lot of JOs will maybe sort of disregard that or take that for granted. And, you know, it's such a valuable thing to have, in my opinion, that experienced person that you can turn, because, you know, even though you're in charge of the fire engine, you don't know everything. No. And there's going to be situations that you come across maybe that you've not dealt with before. And it might be that the person sat behind you has dealt with it.
Yeah.
And you can turn to them and say, you know, what do you think to this? And it's a bit of I think it's quite a special thing to be able to turn to somebody like that and get a bit of advice and a bit of help, you know, if you are in a position that you're not entirely comfortable with, which we do all find ourselves in from time to time.
Yeah, that's very true. And particularly if you've built some integrity with those individuals, they're not going to shy away from giving you a hand. You know, if you're doing the right things in the background and you're looking out for your team, that's where those more experienced hands will gladly jump at the opportunity to help you with what they know.
Yeah, and I think the best team you could have is the one that, you know, they jump off the pump and you don't even have to tell them what to do. They just spring into action and they just start doing it. And it's
beautiful to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, and it makes your life as a JO so much easier. You know, if somebody's got a good idea, great, let's do that.
Yeah. And even like probies or the newer ones, like, can bring some great stuff to the forefront. Yeah, that team, when that team just gels and it's in flow, as they call it, don't they? It's just it is a thing of professional beauty, I believe. Yeah, totally
agree. Yeah. So, have you got any other tips for firefighters when it comes to culture and mental health?
Yeah, so I've got sort of a 3-point overview on this, and that would be like holistic health, particularly with decon, mental health, and off duty. So I'm happy to go into a bit of those if that's what you're after.
Yeah, please do.
Holistically, I've started applying a principle of thinking much bigger picture around my health as a firefighter, and in a capacity of what I've sort of phrased as offsetting factors. So in one hand, we know the risks that the World Health Organization have classified our occupation as carcinogenic to humans. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's on a 2-factor basis: exposure to toxic contaminants and shift work, is it? Or something
I think so.
Those lines?
I think it's I think shift work is a carcinogen itself, isn't it, as well?
Yes, it is. Yeah, class 2B, if I remember right, or class 2.
I can't remember. I know firefighting is now a class 1.
Yes,
but I can't remember what shift work is. But it's just another something that further compounds it, isn't it?
Yes. So we've got those two, which we know about, and we accept and we litigate the risk through good practice like decon and prevention. Do you need to be exposed to this carcinogen right now? Yes or no? No. Okay, let's not do it. Okay, we've risked a bit and now we're going to do decon. Right, so we know that these two are happening. We work shifts, it's unhealthy, and we're exposed to toxic contaminants, also unhealthy. What else are we doing, not just around the fire station, but in our outside lives as well, that are increasing our risks of developing an illness? So here, I'll talk about offsetting the factors of shifts and contamination through your other holistic approach factors, let's say, of nutrition. What are you putting in your body that is either helping or hindering your ability to offset illness? Meal times. I personally choose not to eat on nights most of the time because we know that it's not good for you biologically with your circadian rhythm, you know. And then, okay, you might choose to eat with your watch on of an evening because the benefit of that culture and that team environment is a positive thing. And that is something that I've actually weighed off as well. And I recognise that I'll still sit with my watch, but I won't 9 times out of 10 eat with them. Other factors like movement. Are we getting in some fitness, both cardio and weights, mobility, throughout most weeks? Are you offsetting the sleep deprivation and the disturbed sleep that you've got? Matthew Walker writes a great book on the importance of sleep. So does Sean Stevenson, both good books, which goes into the importance of sleep. And are you planning in some naps or some non-deep sleep rest around your night shift work, or are you getting home and your wife or husband's giving you a massive job list to do because you're around during the daytime? I'd invite you to challenge the job list and say, okay, I actually need some decompression time. I'd try and plan if I've got the capacity to have a nap time, I'd either go for like a 90-minute window.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's a full sleep cycle.
Yeah.
Or if you've got capacity, try and put them 2 back-to-back, 3 hours maybe, or a 20 to 30-minute non-deep sleep rest where you're just laying down, closing your eyes, you're off your phone, and you're just chilling out. So there's a couple of offsetting factors. Are you offsetting?
That's interesting, sorry, because I will sometimes try and have a nap, and I might lay down for 20, 30 minutes. And
yeah,
I find it quite frustrating if I can't fall asleep.
Yes.
But I guess are you saying you're still getting good rest even if you just lay with your eyes closed?
Yes, yeah. I can't remember what the source of that information was, but if you're interested more in it, it's called non-deep sleep rest. I'm with you because I'm like, I wish I could just fall asleep for 20 minutes. Yeah. But I've got quite a busy mind and I sometimes struggle with that. But I did read that the benefit of a non-deep sleep rest, laying down, eyes closed, maybe you put an eye mask on and you've got to change your clothes or something to differentiate the environment, and you've set an alarm for 20 or 30 minutes away, you do reap some biological physical benefit from that. If you can't get that full 90 minutes or 3 hours or whatever it is you're looking for. You can also recover some of the sleep loss. This was from Matthew Walker, from the previous night, the next day. But after that night, the opportunity is gone.
Right, okay.
Which was another interesting thing.
So this sort of working through the week and then catching up on the weekend thing
doesn't exist.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I do think there is some benefit to it, like after your second night shift, if you can get sleep where, you're looking to achieve a bit well beyond 7.5 hours of sleep, you will offset some of it from the previous night.
Yeah.
Not the first night. Matthew Walker, a scientist, says that opportunity is gone, which also feeds into another one of my holistic points, like how much are we working? How much is your second job affecting you? How much stress are you under? It all feeds into that holistic approach of, can you offset your disease likelihood by building a positive environment outside? Like, do you smoke? Do you vape? Do you do Class A drugs? Are you into exercise abuse?
Right, yeah.
Are you exercising too much where you're just ramping up cortisol in your body unnecessarily when you should be allowing your body that time to rest and recuperate?
Yeah.
An analogy that I recently presented was alcohol. How often do you go out with your mates and crush up some asbestos sheeting and breathe it in? I'm guessing.
Hopefully never.
Yeah, but now if we compare that to how often we'll go out for drinks of alcohol because it's a socially acceptable thing. Both alcohol and asbestos are a class or category 1 carcinogen.
Right, okay.
But we'll gladly, voluntarily consume a cat 1 carcinogen because of social acceptability, but we won't go and break up asbestos sheets and sniff that up our nose or breathe it in because it's not a social thing, is it?
Yeah. So I guess it depends on the comparative effect that the exposure one versus the other would have.
Potentially, yeah.
Is there much of a? So I would assume asbestos is way more harmful than alcohol. I know alcohol is harmful. I would assume asbestos is way more harmful, but I've not really done much research into how harmful alcohol is. So is it about perspective, or are you saying one is just as harmful as the other?
Well, on World Health, they've categorized them in the same category. And I think alcohol has now been scientifically linked to 5 causes of cancer or 5 types of cancer. And, like the asbestos can take years to have an effect. But how much is our alcohol consumption increasing our risk?
Yeah. And leaving us vulnerable to other things as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We talk about time, distance and shielding for hazmat. how much time, distance, or prevention from alcohol can we actually do to support us, essentially.
Yeah.
It goes back to the bucket analogy of what you're putting in your bucket and what's taking out of your bucket. What is the resilience gap? So that's a few on the holistic approach.
That's interesting. That I think I might look into that, because I know I guess my approach to alcohol would be it's okay in moderation. I wouldn't take the same approach to asbestos.
Yeah.
So I'll maybe look. Yeah, I'm intrigued by the categorization of that and alcohol. So I might go away
World
and
Health
have a little look at that.
See what they deem as a safe level of alcohol consumption.
I will, because asbestos, there's no safe level of exposure to asbestos, is there? But I would hope there was with alcohol. But I'll go ahead and have a look at that.
Yeah. It's a tough one to crack because it's a social thing, isn't it? And anyway, mental health, my view on it is the more decades that you've been on this earth, the more your likelihood is for unresolved historical traumas, PTSD, and we're in a job that stacks against us. So I think if you're a person, men are meant to be more susceptible, or this historical thing of not talking to each other. If you're in your 20s, 30s, as you progress towards your 40s and later life, I think the time spent on earth means, my opinion, that you just have a greater likelihood of having things go on that are unaddressed. So that's where, create your own prescription. Think about your holistic views. Think about what is helping you. We'd go to the doctor for a sprained ankle, but many of us are reluctant to go for a problem with the mind. You'd go for you've got a chest infection on your lungs. Your lungs are an organ, just the same as your brain is. Sometimes your brain doesn't fire quite right, or might need some help, be that medicated, be it therapy. I've been through various therapists over the years for different things that have come up, and it's some of the best time and money that I've spent on myself, on my health. Self-care is not selfish. A lot of people who are susceptible to ill mental health are some of the most kindest, giving people that I've ever met, but they can be very reluctant to put themselves first in a self-care capacity.
I agree. I always try and push the message of, we need to take care of ourselves first before we can take care of anybody else.
The oxygen mask on the plane thing, yeah?
Yeah, exactly that. If you don't look after yourself first, then you're no good to anybody else, are you?
No, yeah, completely with you on that. I also think, like an RTC, you've got like your plan A, plan B, or primary plan, secondary plan, however you want to put it. I think having that for a mental health crisis is another potential positive idea. Like if you've got a plan for when shit hits the fan, like who is your 3 a.m. guy or girl? Who are your close people where hopefully you've done all the right things to avoid a complete meltdown or breakdown, but if or when you do have one, you've actually got like a rough idea of what to do. Right, this is my person that I can call at 3 a.m. If you're in a relationship, are they that supporting person? They could be that person to you. I've got 2 close mates who I know I could call at any time of day. They'll listen to me or they'll be here.
Yeah, that's great.
Regardless. And I'd encourage people to build that sort of resilience plan. You might not need to ever use it, but if it's there, then it's just there. And then off duty, never get married to the job. Yep. I think off duty time is super important. What your home life looks like, what your home holistic environment feeds into how you perform at work, and then your work also feeds into who you are as a person at home for your family, your friends, etc. Having that social life and doing things that are meaningful and fulfilling feeds into how you operate as a firefighter and how you are as a person in your circles, essentially. I had a mentor, one of my mentors taught me this great concept of push and coast. And it's to acknowledge that you're nodding. Have you heard it as well?
It sounds familiar, but I imagine you're going to give me some more insight on it.
Yeah. You might have read it in one of your books. I don't know where he got it from, but it sort of alludes to you can have periods of your career when you can really push, and that might be when you've got steady times at home or outside of work. And that can also flip as well. You might have times in your career when you've finished a push, maybe a promotion or maybe a probation, and then it's appropriate to coast. It's important to not follow an aggressive linear upward curve, in my opinion, at the sacrifice to other things, where you can take the opportunity to invest in family time, in your friendships and in your activities outside of work.
Completely agree. Yeah, take your foot off the gas every now
Precisely
and
right.
then. Yeah,
Yeah, push and coast concept.
I like that. Yeah,
That's about it for those
yeah,
three, I think.
brilliant. I quickly wanted to touch on something you said. Men are more susceptible to PTSD. Is that true? Because that would make I wouldn't want any women listening to think, because I think sometimes there's a big push on men's mental health, isn't there? And I think sometimes
Yes.
it can almost look as though women's mental health is disregarded sometimes, I think. So when you say men are more susceptible, is that true, or is it just that men find themselves in situations more often that would kind of bring about the onset of it?
Yeah, you're right to question that, and I think perhaps I phrased it incorrectly. I think both sexes are susceptible to mental health issues in a variety of different capacities. What I meant to say is, historically, men have been more reluctant than women to talk about mental health concerns, which I believe then might feed into later problems because they haven't had that opportunity to offload it. My understanding is that women have been good at talking to one another and supporting one another in those capacities where there perhaps isn't so many barriers to being vulnerable, whereas as men, I think we're a little bit behind the curve in that capacity, but it's definitely improving. Does that
With you. Yeah, I've got you.
make better sense?
Absolutely.
Not to say that women are any less susceptible to
No,
PTSD or other mental
I didn't think that's what you were saying. That's why I sort of wanted to clarify, because I wouldn't have expected that's what you were saying. I just thought I wanted to just dive into that a little bit, because it is an interesting topic, and I think you're right. I think as men, historically, men do keep things, I think, a bit
closer to the chest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think it's important for us to remember that we do need to offload that from time to time. So culture, then, I know you spent a bit of time in the States, didn't you?
Yes.
Which I wanted to ask about. So in terms of culture, what was your experience like over there? And was the culture similar or totally different? I imagine it was a similar culture, but what was your experience like over there?
That was fantastic. Yeah, I missed mentioning that on my stand-up moments earlier on, but it was on my notes. Oregon, this was in a wildfire exchange. So our service has got a sort of inter-service agreement with one of the services over in Oregon, which is sort of in the northwest corner of America. I know you like Canada, so probably know exactly where that is.
I'm familiar with that area, a little bit, yeah.
But yeah, so I applied to that exchange program and was third time lucky as such. Very popular, as you can imagine. They only send a small team over for a couple of weeks or so. But yeah, the team out there is similar crossovers in culture. I did see a different ethos in a very positive way of the fire crews there. There's a little bit of a different shift system and things like that. They work a longer shift over multiple days and have a slightly different organisational structure supported by on-call and volunteers and those who are newly joining the departments. And it's not like our structure in the UK where we've got like perhaps counties or joined counties providing one service. They've got, in the state of Oregon, they may have like hundreds of different fire departments, and they're all
right.
So the department I went to was 3 or 4 stations, but that was that one whole department.
So each town can have its own fire department, I guess.
Yeah,
sometimes
I think so. So we had like one whole time and retained station in one sort of town. I say town, it was maybe like 3,000, 5,000 people-ish. And then in the more rural communities, they've got a couple of on-call stations as well. So yeah, it was really interesting seeing the structure side of things. But back to the culture question, I think America, a lot of the firefighters, they self-fund their initial training, and their initial training courses like different to ours. I think my opinion of it is they are pushed a little bit harder than ours, and that the medical response model out there as well gives a different level to the UK. But I saw a very high level of professionalism in the department that I got to exchange with, and a really strong watch culture, like the meals, the family vibe and the outside of work vibe was like next level. Like during our off duty time, we got to ride the trucks and go out on the ambulances and fire engines with them, because we'd done the prior training required. But in the off-duty time, we were invited to firefighters' houses for dinner, including the chief's house.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, yes, it's a smaller department.
Yeah, very close knit.
Really close knit. It had this real strong family vibe about it that was definitely different to that in the UK. I'm not saying we don't look out for each other in the UK, because like I touched on earlier, people have looked out for me through thick and thin here, but I know that's not the case for everyone in the UK service. This department did feel like this very, very personable, very familial sort of vibe, and extremely professional. You know, they were just like switch on. There was lots of fitness going on. There was watch meals. I absolutely loved it.
Sounds great.
It was just amazing.
How long were you there?
I think we went Friday. It was just over 2 weeks, so maybe like 16 days worth.
Right, nice.
I'd have loved to have gone longer, but I can see why in a service-to-service transfer, that's hard to sort of manage. But yeah, to anyone who's thinking about doing or has an opportunity to do a stint, be that secondment or exchange program, again, like other opportunities, I'd say if it can work out for you, it might not be the easiest, or you might find an excuse to say, oh, it's not the right time, but is it a good time? If it's a good time, you know,
is it ever going to be the right time?
Exactly my point. Yeah. So just, definitely. Even if you get to go overseas and have a look around another station and perhaps grab a coffee with the on-duty crew or whatever, and it's just brilliant to see a different side of things.
So is that something that was specific to your service then, or was it like a national thing that you were able to?
Yeah, this was service specific. So I'm not sure if any other services in the UK are doing similar at the moment. I haven't heard anything about it, but it was all about the fundamentals of it is wildfire. So we were trained in wildfire and got to know better methods and stuff.
Right. So it was to bring a bit of knowledge and experience on that particular discipline.
So I should have done
back over here to your service.
You got it. Yeah.
Nice.
We get a lot of wildfires in our county, and it was nice going back with a new knowledge and experience that you could then actually put into practice on the ground here. So definitely something positive. Yeah.
Well, that sounds great. So we've talked a bit about, the different secondments and the different areas you've worked in.
Yeah.
Do you see anything particular in terms of next steps for yourself, in terms of career direction? Where do you see yourself going next?
For me, it's developing my current roles. I want to continue to improve as a crew manager and improve that role, both operationally and sort of the leadership aspect of things. And the USAR and ISAR relatively new to me. So again, just more about honing and polishing now is what I would suggest on those two. ISAR, I'm very new. I was only joined that team last year, and I've only just become deployable. So there's a strong learning curve ahead of me there. So it's going to be about polishing up my current skill sets, seeing what other skills might be appropriate to dive into, and just working on that and being the best sort of technician I can in those roles, as well as my whole-time role, basically.
Well, I look forward to seeing what you do next, to be honest.
Watch this space.
I'm sure hopefully we'll have an opportunity to catch up again about where it takes you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask if you have got a book, a documentary, and/or a movie recommendation.
Okay, so I did make a couple of notes on this. Didn't have so much of documentary or movie recommendation, but I've looked over some of my recent studies and what content I've been absorbing recently. There's a great book by Jocko Willink called Leadership Strategy and Tactics. I think that's really good for... Have you read it?
I've read that one as well. Yeah,
Doesn't
great book. Good book.
Yeah. That's great for firefighters, regardless of rank or role. I think it's a really decent book. Interesting recent podcast was one of the Diary of the CEO, Stephen Bartlett. He had a guest on who was a dopamine expert. It was very interesting, and it feeds a lot into sort of dopamine addiction in the Western world. I've got two other books that are more around like nutrition and that psychological relationship there. So there's Valter Longo's Longevity Diet, which really interesting, challenged what I previously thought was a healthy diet, and it's put a new spin on things like protein intake, vegetables, carbohydrates, and stuff like that. And the Western
Right, cool.
world, it kind of turns the Western world's food pyramid in a different perspective. And then there's a book by a chap called Alan Carr, not the comedian. He writes a book about emotional eating, which was a very interesting read around the psychology behind why we eat what we eat and how we've been affected psychologically into what we consume.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he
Interesting.
dives into sort of sugar and stuff like that, which I
Right,
think will
yeah.
be a big topic in times to come.
That's something I need to have less of, to be honest, is sugar.
It's rife in the fire service, isn't it? Cakes and biscuits.
Yeah, and it's such a, if you miss meals, or if you're feeling tired and you just get a quick sugar fix, or chocolate bar or can of Coke or something, they're just so easy,
Yeah,
aren't they, to reach for and give yourself a little boost.
yes, yeah, that's a good one. If you're interested in looking at that, I'd recommend it. It was kind of a game changer for me, on a nutritional front. Yeah, he writes other books around smoking and vaping and stuff as well. I just recommended the
Right.
vaping one to a colleague, and he finished the book and he quit vaping literally
Wow.
like that
Right.
because of the way the book and this guy, he gets you to challenge your own belief systems again on why you do what you do. So yeah, those are a few books, podcasts, etc.
Excellent. Thanks for that, mate. Appreciate it. Before we round off, you are a good source of information, and the stuff you share online is very helpful to saving and aspiring firefighters, and I think people can learn a lot from the stuff you put out. So
Thank you.
where can people reach you if they'd like to see a bit more of the kind of stuff you put out?
If you're within arm's distance from me, just reach out to my shoulder, and then you can reach me there. If you're not, then Instagram is probably my main platform that I would be contactable on, and it's just chris.sellick, SELLICK on Instagram. Yeah, feel free to check out the reels, the highlights, or drop me a message if you've got anything that you want to talk about or you want to know. That's the best place.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, mate. And thanks for coming on, being my first guest on this. Really appreciate it, and hopefully people get a lot out of what we've discussed today.
Absolutely, real pleasure. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it, particularly as your first one.
Thank you, mate. It's been excellent.
Yes, see ya.